Good morning and welcome to the Elections Update. I'm Mel Thomas and he's Lewis Rolfe.
On today's show we'll be discussing the roles of sabbatical and the non-sabbatical officers.
We'll be joined by Molly Wright, the current Activities and Development Officer, Meg Baxter, member of her campaign team, and our political analysts.
So now voting has officially opened. You have until Friday to log on to your MyBHAM account and register your vote. Over the past few days, candidates have been campaigning hard. Mel, have you seen any example of this?
Well, yeah, I went to Fab on Saturday and a lot of the candidates were there. Not all of them, but quite a few, and they were all around. They were wearing like t-shirts with their logos on and stuff, have their friends wearing them. And then a lot of them had sort of frames. They were getting people to like, take photos with them. They were handing out sweets and stamping people's hands and handing out condoms.
Never have too many sweets.
Anyway, what about you? Have you seen any examples?
Yeah, I had a lecture shout out the other day. Obviously, apart from the banners and the posters, a girl stood up in one of the lectures. She had a t-shirt on. She explained some of the candidates' policies.
Yeah, it can be really useful.
Yeah, it was quite weird as a first year. I hadn't seen it before. I believe it's not as much cardboard on campus as there has been.
Yeah, no. Last year there was just so much. Whenever you walk to uni, all over the Vale, it was loads, and maybe it's just the weather this year. They can't do as much. Yeah. But anyway, the focus of today's show is what these candidates will be doing when elected into their roles as SAB and non-SAB officers.
And luckily, we're joined by someone who knows from first-hand experience. It's Molly Wright, the current VPAD. Thanks for joining us, Molly.
Not at all. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So this seems to be becoming one of our standard questions, first questions, but it seems sort of necessary considering the theme today. So can you just explain to our viewers your role? And
Yeah, I mean, I guess as Vice President of Activities and Development, that means that I have to support and facilitate all student group events, activities, and the student groups themselves. Their activities develop both their members and their committee members in the way that they have to organise and create original and innovative ideas. I also make sure that they're represented appropriately to the university and on a national scale. I'm Editor-in-Chief for all Guild Media publications. There are a lot of different strands to my role, and it's the same for all officer roles really, but I guess in a nutshell that's what I do.
Yeah. So in your role as VPAD, are you required to work closely with the other SABs and even the non-SABs as well?
Yeah, definitely. We're very much a team this year. We went into this year saying we wanted to be a properly 7 team rather than in the last few years it has been splintered quite a lot. And I do work especially closely with the President on editorial roles. I work with Vice President of Sport quite a lot when clubs and societies come together to organise things. And with welfare from time to time, because sabbatical officers all represent students at disciplinary meetings and support meetings and things. Also with the non-SABs as well, though that's more on a choice basis. If the non-SABs are organising something that they think is that I have expertise to help in, I'm more than happy to get on board with absolutely everything. The anti-racism, anti-fascism officer this year, Georgia Levine, she's my non-SAB buddy. We have a bit of a support system, and she's organised some really great events this year, which I've been actually really quite honoured to help out on, getting speakers in from Hope Not Hate and things like that.
Okay. So could you explain some of your long-term goals that you set out to achieve, but also kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis, because it must be quite hard to balance the two.
Yeah, it's really tough. I always say that it takes about a month to learn how to do the job in summer, and then students come back and you have to relearn all over again because there is just so much extra stuff you have to do. My long-term goals were to try and improve the Guild website, to try and improve the career support for people who want to go into alternative careers from a degree. So I did a history degree, but I'm not pursuing anything. I'm not going to become a historian. And also to try and improve the visibility of student groups on campus. So I've not completed any of them yet, but they're all in process, and I think probably my biggest win this year has been the online membership and online training. So making resources more accessible to groups online, making things better that way. But yeah, it's really tough because I also have to deal with room bookings and all of the day-to-day work that StuDev deal with.
So would you say, I know you're not out of office yet, but would you say you're quite happy with what you've achieved over the past year?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really happy with it actually. there have been ups and downs, obviously, with any kind of role there are ups and downs. But I've got another 4.5 months, as you say, not quite done yet. And there are some policies that I'm really looking forward to nailing down for my successor.
Okay, well, thanks for the minute, Molly. Obviously, we'll be with you again in a second. Sure. But now we're going to take a look at the presidential debate which took place on Saturday.
Yeah, this is where all the presidential candidates got together and answered questions posed to them by members of the student body. Our on-campus team were there covering the event.
Hello, greetings. This is the presidential hustings debate. Do any of the candidates wish to challenge another candidate's answer?
It's a bit mean, but were you saying then, Ed, that by an officer being re-elected, they would give the Guild a certain upper hand and continuity in terms of issues with the university?
Yes, he was. Quite clever, but no.
I have a challenge for Ed. You described it, but it should be a spectrum, whether you are having discussions or having a protest. I don't quite understand what you mean by a spectrum.
Spectrum might be the wrong word, maybe it's a process, that's probably a better word. You start with discussion, then if discussion doesn't work, you go and get support for your idea. Just like to ask Poppy, do you not agree that saying that a department's not effective doesn't mean that the staff aren't effective, that maybe they don't have the resources?
Yeah, I'd agree that there are departments in the Guild that that could be better funded, they could be better resourced, better staffed.
People aren't actually paying any more, they're paying the same amount. Well, the funds available for each individual are the same because the subsidies are gone, which is why people pay more.
The university still
receives the same amount of money.
Per student, I think that was
yes,
the point.
but the university's also lobbied for that money to go directly to them rather than through the government.
It's just to Ben, actually, and it's a challenge possibly to other answers you've given to questions. I guess as the incumbent president, I'm finding it quite difficult to take a lot of the rhetoric that you're putting out.
I greatly appreciated the work you put in when you first started the Guild. I actually thought it was great. I thought you did loads for women. As it went on, from my perspective, it seems like you were increasingly battered by the senior management team.
Are you going to get a kind of black, disabled, lesbian woman to sit in that role to fulfill all the representation that those people need?
It's not about the individual fighting for their rights, that's fine. It's about organising events.
Brilliant. Well, that's the end of our presidential hustings. Let's give the candidates a round of applause.
So as you can see, there's some conflicting views from all the presidential candidates.
We're now going to talk to Molly again, but we're also joined by one of her campaign team, Meg.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Hi.
So firstly, Meg, as a normal student, was you clear on the roles of all the SAB officers before you got involved in the campaigning?
No, I wasn't. My first year, I had no idea about sabbatical officers, about the Guild. I just very much stayed with my flatmates and went out. And then second year, a friend of mine decided to run, David, and then I was just introduced to the Guild. And then when Molly the next year said she was running, I was like, yes, we have this.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so as a member of Molly's campaign team and David's, do you feel like the team influences their candidates' policies, or?
Yeah, I guess every candidate is different. With David and with Molly, they both had clear ideas of the sort of policies they wanted, but they'd always talk it out. Especially Molly, we'd have meetings and we just discussed sort of ideas she had, different names for the policies, such as Society Saturday. We talked about that a lot. So yeah, and I do think she takes our feedback into consideration, as we are the, average students, I guess.
Yeah, and I can open this question out to both of you. Once the candidate's been elected, like Molly has been, is that the end of your role, or is there any continued involvement throughout the year?
I think there's, at least for us, for Molly's campaign team, we've definitely continued our role.
Pastoral care is not to be underestimated.
And she will still run ideas by us and chat about how she's implementing her manifesto.
Yeah, because it must be sort of weird living with someone who's no longer, in uni and going, to lectures and things, doing something completely different.
Yeah, it is different. I mean, has a full-time job, but I do like the input that we still get, and we're friends ultimately, and that's campaign teams tend to be. It's not like politics.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest things when you're campaigning. If you've got a good friendship support group around you, it's invaluable. You can have all the cardboard in the world, but if you don't have that, then you really do struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. So why do you think you got elected? Like, were specific policies that you think people went for?
This is a really tricky question because the equation to winning is not one that is, easy to define. I think Meg would agree. When we were campaigning for David, it was really tricky to know exactly what to go forward. And I like to think that all of my manifesto points were ones that got me elected, but ultimately it's also the personality that you're voting for. And I hope that people felt that they could trust me. That's how we always door knocked, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely agree. For us, I definitely think the door knocking, especially with Molly, was invaluable. She's a very chatty personality. She's extremely easy to get along with, and that really helps, I feel.
Particularly with your role in particular, obviously activities and development.
It's a very front-facing role.
Very interactive.
So I'll take
It's really important, and even if it's not them handing out sweets or flyers, even if it's just them saying, have you eaten yet today, I'll bring you a sandwich onto campus, how are you sleeping, let me do that for you this time.
So just for little things a lot of the time.
It's unbelievable.
Pressure off. Okay, well thanks to both of you for answering our questions. That's certainly given an insight into the role of SAB officers, and particularly that of activities and development. Tom Harvey has been looking into the role of all sabbatical officers.
There are 7 SAB officers elected each year, but what do they really do? Low voter turnout could be linked with the fact that students don't know much about what Guild Office actually does. Could lack of knowledge be what causes so much student apathy? We wanted to know what the students knew about the Guild Office, so we asked a few students if they knew what the SABs did.
Actually, to be honest, not really. I couldn't tell the difference between the roles.
Not really. We know that there are sabbatical officers, but not who they are or what their role is.
That they have different jobs that I couldn't say I know completely, but they all have their own distinct function.
Not really. I don't know who they are, but I know there's like 6 or 7 of them, wasn't there? And they all have like different roles, but I'm not sure what.
There's VPAD, who lets us do all the societies. There's VPDR, and I have no idea what they do. Literally no idea, but they have democracy in the name, which is great.
I don't really know what some of the non-SABs do, but most of the SABs I've had to work with or talk to them before, and they all seem to represent the best views for the students.
With students not knowing much about the SABs, we asked a few of them to describe in their own words what their role in the Guild is.
As Vice President of Activities and Development, I make sure that all the groups are properly represented, both to the university and on a national scale.
As Vice President of Housing and Community, my role is to work with the university around services in halls, to manage the RA scheme, and also to work with the Vice President Welfare on issues in Selly Oak.
As Vice President Welfare, I deal with most things related to safety and well-being of students whilst they're at university. So that includes things around health, like mental health, sexual health, and general well-being. I also work very closely with the Vice President of Housing Community on safety in Selly Oak, liaising with the police and also with community partnership schemes.
I'm effectively a sabbatical officer responsible for finances, sustainability, democratic structures. It's quite difficult to describe what I actually do and what other people in my role might actually do, but I, for example, chair finance committee. I work with the university sustainability team.
So my role as Vice President Sport, I guess like all the other Vice President roles, is split into 2. So you've got the Vice President part, which is where you are a representative and support for all the students of the University of Birmingham. So that's sort of the Vice President part. And then the portfolio part is the sport and nutrition part. So what that means is that I'm the sort of go-to student representative on issues relating to sport. I'm there to represent the sporting interests of actually every student.
Hopefully this has helped you understand more about what the SABs do. If you'd like any more information, go to guildelections.co.uk. So there's information about who the SABs are and their role within the Guild.
Thanks very much, Tom. So as you can see there, some SAB officers, particularly Jeffro, mentioned that he works quite closely with the Housing Community Officer, Dave Charles.
Yeah, and it was really interesting that one of the students mentioned that the activities and democracies and resources, she didn't really know what that was, and then Tom Wright himself said it's really hard to explain.
Yeah, he found it difficult to explain himself. Perhaps this is a reason why a lot of students find it difficult to sort of understand the roles of the SAB officers, but we do hope that clip cleared a few things up.
Yeah. So we're now going to hand over to Johnny and James for some political analysis.
All right, thanks guys. I'm James.
I'm Johnny.
So hi to our viewers. Last Friday we went through what we thought of Fab and Sab, and also hopefully a chance for the campaigns to regroup. So Johnny was chairing the presidential debate, so obviously had to stay unbiased then, but Johnny, what did you think of it?
I wasn't particularly impressed. I felt that overall the candidates were quite beige in tone. I felt, as you were saying to me earlier, that the more extreme candidates kind of reined it back a bit, and the more tame candidates tried to get a bit more exciting, but overall I think they all just merged into one.
Yeah, they definitely merged into one. So I got the sense that a few were trying to just appeal to what they thought people would be thinking, rather than what they actually thought. And if you ask them the same question on a different day, you'd get a different answer.
That's an interesting point. Interestingly, out of the pre-submitted questions for the debate, only 3 students submitted questions. One of them was a current SAB, one of them was a candidate running an election, and the other one was me. So you really have to question how much students really care about these elections in general. Also an interesting point, the VPDR, Tom Ragg, didn't turn up to watch any of the hustings or debates and didn't help to organise them. So it begs the question, why isn't the VPDR really trying to take a firm hand in guiding these elections forward?
Yeah, that's a good point. So moving on, I guess the question we're trying to answer today is, what is a sabbatical officer? But I guess a better point to start on is, who is a sabbatical officer? Well, at this point, they're just normal students. They take a year out of their studies or add another year on before they go into their career, and they win an election just like this.
That's a good point. If we look more at what a sabbatical officer is within the kind of guild democratic structures, interestingly, they're not policy-setting leaders. They're more kind of caretakers of the guild when guild council's not in session.
Yeah, every SU has SABs pretty much. Obviously, the smaller ones might not. And also, some SUs have, they require a certain number of votes for the election to be binding. How do you think that would work here?
I personally don't think if we had some type of chorusy, then we would get it. I think that this year, especially, we're looking low on kind of engagement, and I doubt we're going to get some impressive voting numbers at all.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd make a guess and say that we're going to have a low voter turnout, possibly due to the lack of sort of material on campus or just the quality in the campaigns.
Yeah, so getting back to what a sabbatical officer actually does, not the specifics of the role, but as a team, they're supposed to act out the current policy of the guild voted for by guild council. The president alone is supposed to talk to external media, and they're supposed to lead formulation of policy but not set it, and finally work with the university and the community. But interestingly, all the sabbatical teams of the years that I've been at university have completely ignored this and done whatever they like with the mandate that they see as large, and they've decided to speak to whoever they want about whatever they like and do whatever they like and just claim that they've been elected, so it's fine.
Yeah, well, it's difficult when about only 1 in 5 students are turning up to vote. Anyone can make an argument as to what the other 4 students that didn't vote want and use that to back whatever they want to do.
There are often large claims about what the silent majority wants, but the silent majority are indeed silent. So I guess we can't really tell.
So if you're silent and watching this, remember to vote.
Yeah, I guess. So I think that's about it for us.
Yeah, so join us again on Wednesday for more sweeping generalisations and political bias. And back to you guys.
Thanks very much again, boys. That brings an end to today's show, but remember, voting has opened. Vote today, and you've got until Friday to register your vote on My BHAM. You see on the t-shirt there, have you voted? Also, if you needed more information, check out guildelections.co.uk. Also, for more information on the candidates, check out the 60-second profiles on the Guild TV channel on YouTube.
Yeah, so join us next time when we'll be exploring what the officers have actually achieved this year and posing the question, is a year long enough? See you Wednesday.
See you then.